I came back from Teen Mania, and um, I mean, a few things happened, like relationships, and I got a job and all that, and when I was working jobs, I always felt like I never was really. I worked in like call centers and stuff like that, like I did at Teen Mania, and I felt like it never was. I always just kind of had this like. I've always had this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that like there has to be something more than just working these jobs and trying to pay my bills and all of that. I was like, this just it. I felt like I didn't have a lot of purpose. You know what I mean? And so I had all these jobs, and I job hopped quite a bit, and then like it's been 5 years ago now. I got fired from a job. I always like uh, and it was working as like a recruiter for this company, and um, I guess that was one of my biggest fears and throughout my entire life was that I would get fired from a job at some point. And again, going back to like if you're focused on like I realize now I created that situation for myself. You know what I mean? Because I was so afraid of it happening that like I was in the vibration of that thing happening, and it happened. You know, and so that was the first time that I really got intentional, and I sat down and in my mind I was like, what is it that I really want to do? Like, what kind of job do I want to have? What kind of work do I want to do? What would really make me happy? And uh, as I started kind of like just having more intention, you know what I mean? I started going out and networking all the time, meeting new people. And I was like 30 years old at this point. And yeah, right around the time, you're 29, I was 30. Like, I feel like that's a turning point time.
You're
In
34 now?
what's that?
How old are you now?
35.
I'm
So
about to
yeah,
say 35.
yeah, it's been about 5 years that everything really started changing. And I eventually got a job full time at a really cool place. It was a really good job, good people, good environment, good work that I was doing. And it felt really fulfilling. And I was making like okay money. I had a decent salary for it and everything. And but I still felt like something was missing. Like after being there for a few months, I was like, oh, so this is it. Like there's no more. I don't feel like I have a goal that I'm reaching for. Because the whole time that I was looking for a job for that entire year, it was the constant hustle of, okay, you got to go out, you got to meet new people, you got to make another paycheck, you got to figure out how this is going to work. And uh, I had all these people that were just reaching out to me, asking me for help with connections. Like, hey, do you know anybody who's hiring for a job? Do you know anybody who can do like graphic design? I just had people asking me for help. Um, as I look back now, it was the universe trying to show me this is what you should be doing. You should be helping people, or at least it was showing me that like, hey, you have value and people are showing up that need help because you are can add value. So I decided to put together like a happy hour and just have a bunch of people show up, and like 50 people showed up, and there was really no intention other than just to like meet people. And then the next month I did another one, and 100 people showed up. And then like towards the end of that summer, this is 2014 now, I had like 500 people showing up to these events here in St. Louis where I live. And I just quit my job. I had been talking to my wife about it, but one day I just was like,
Hold on. When did you
yeah.
get married? Because I remember the last thing I remember about you before I started seeing you again is when you were dating Amanda Riley,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that was like a bazillion years ago. But I want to know how
Yeah.
in the timeline what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, she and I dated for like 2.5 years. And then uh, it was probably 2006 that we stopped dating. And I met my wife in 2008. So we've been together for 10 years, and we've been married for 6 years. So um, yeah, and we're still going strong. So it's been some struggles, like you know how it is being an entrepreneur. You're in a different mindset. You think differently than like, you know, and she has a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's, you know, just two different ways of life and two different ways of thinking. So sometimes there's been like, tough conversations and stuff like that, but she's been really, really supportive. And, you know, it's just, especially when you're trying to get it off the ground, sometimes it's a struggle just financially. Like, how are we going to make this work? You know, you go from getting a salary all the time. So, but everything's been okay. And like, now I'm here, I have an office, and, that I rent, and I have a studio that I rent and stuff. So things are going better. But, uh, it was around, I was doing all those events and everything, and I quit my job, and I really didn't have a plan. I was like, I just knew I'm the kind of person, throw me into the fire and I'll figure out how this is all going to work and how I'm going to make it happen. I don't really, I used to think that people that would become entrepreneurs and business owners, that they like build up the plan slowly, they get everything in place and everything's perfect, and then they quit their jobs and like jump off. And like, you know, I don't know if that would work for me or not. I'm too impatient. um, I'm just the kind of person that I have to just jump in and say, let's try this, and I will figure out a way to make it happen. And if it doesn't work, I will figure something else out, you know. And life's too short to be going to these jobs every day that I don't like. And um, so I had I had a year or two of like working part-time at some places to help kind of like bring in some income while I figured all this out. And I was still working. I mean, at that point, this is 2015, I was working every day of the week, except Saturday. And I would work a late shift at my friend's donut shop on Friday night, and then I would work the morning shift on Sunday. So I would usually sleep in on Saturday and go to bed early on Saturday night. So I really didn't have, and then every other day of the week I was working. So eventually I started helping people find jobs. I started helping companies find people, because everything is connected. Everything is all about like, knowing people. You know, people still have a need for finding employees, and even though the internet is really helpful now, there's like so much that you have to look through. And just putting a job posting online, you might find the right person, but you might get 200 resumes, you know. So they can just call me, I'll give you 5 resumes of qualified people that I know. So that's kind of how I started working. And then that moved into, I started doing like motivational speaking. People started asking.
How did that
I think it just started through it. Well, it was something that I always wanted to do. You know, it was something that when I quit my job, I thought I really want to like add this as like a service, a thing that I can do. And I literally just had people that had come to my events start reaching out and saying, would you come talk to my college classroom or my high school classroom about networking and about how do you meet new people? How do you find jobs? How do you help people and all that? And as that started to grow, and then when people started to ask me, the more that I did, the more I got asked to come back and stuff. And then I started asking people like, well, hey, do you have any kind of budget? Can you pay me even just like $100? You know, because it's a weird thing. It's like not everybody wants to pay to have somebody come in and just talk, you know. But people they started paying me a little bit, and as I just started testing the waters more and more. So the next time somebody would come to me, I would say like, yeah, I charge $250. And then the next time somebody would come to me, I'd say, yeah, well, you know, it's 500. And I just kept like bumping it up, because every time that I would do it, it would, you know, it's one of those weird things where it's like, it's not a business that scales. There's only one of me. There's only one of you. So like, you have to just charge more for your time, basically. And I started getting better and better too. So then I had people start reaching out to me, and it started to get easier. And they were like, hey, yeah, we want you to come out here. Here's the rate that we'll pay. We'll pay for your hotel. We'll pay for this. We'll pay for that. And this was before I knew anything about law of attraction or like gratitude or anything like that. But as I look back, I realized I was attracting these opportunities by taking the littlest opportunity and using it as like, okay, in my mind, I am a speaker. I am, like like using the affirmations, like I have value. People will pay me. People are paying me. People, you know, like, and the more that I did that, the more things just kind of started to show up. And then there's marketing that goes into it. You know, every time I don't care if it was a classroom with 5 people, I would get a picture taken and I would put it on Instagram and Facebook so that people could see what I was doing. Yeah. Not as like an ego thing, but so that like if somebody saw it, it would get into their minds. It's like, oh, look, he's out here speaking to people. Maybe I could hire him someday, or you know, the more that idea is just in other people's minds, the more it starts to like spread. So yeah, and now I've been doing this for 3 years now. That I've been self-employed, and everything that you said about reading books, about practicing gratitude, about just I don't know if it's like if it's has something to do with like you know, we went to Teen Mania, and there like that was a time of a lot of thinking and a lot, even though we were really young, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that I did back then. I mean, that was 15 years ago, but in those types of environments and with religion, there's a lot of, not every religion, but like for me growing up, there's a lot of introspection of like, you don't want to sin. So how can you you need to repent of your sins. And then how can you keep yourself from sinning, which I don't really think is like a good way to necessarily look at it now. But I have these thoughts all the time now of, I don't like certain things that I do, and how can I change those habits and those behaviors? Like, you know, something like smoking, you know, it's bad for you. And I used to smoke too. Like, you know, it's bad for you, but you keep doing it. And it's like, there would even be times when I'm doing it, I'm like, I know I shouldn't be doing this right now, and I could just flick this away and it would be that easy, but why is it so hard? And so I've always been like an introspective person and a very like reflective person. And over the last year or two, I've really like started to dive into self-help, consciousness expansion, more of the spiritual like books about you know, who are we as human beings, and how can you get in touch with like just your inner being and who you are, and the ideas of like our mind, and you know, the voice in our mind can play tricks on us. It can talk us out of things. And like, I think what you said earlier about, are you aligned with your beliefs and with your thoughts? And that has been the most helpful thing for me. Is if I'm going to put on an event and charge a certain amount of money for a ticket, or if I'm going to do a speech and get paid a fee that I've never been paid before, because it's like, it's a higher, you know, a higher rate, I need to go in there already believing that I'm worth that ticket price, you know? And if I don't, then I'll end up self-sabotaging it. You know, I'll end up doing something, not being confident, not putting together the best speech, not rehearsing it, not promoting it. And it's,
or even like getting sick that day or something.
Yeah, exactly. Calling it off. So that's been the biggest thing for me, is like a lot. If I meditate every day, but if I don't meditate one day and later on in that day I feel a little bit out of whack, I'm like, it's because I'm not in alignment. Like, I haven't taken time to really just like put my head on straight, I guess, to say, you know. So now I've moved into doing coaching too. I haven't gotten a certification or anything, but I was already helping people with job coaching and stuff like that, and helping them. And, you know, when somebody's looking for a job, they can get very depressed, and it can be very disheartening if they get rejected a lot, and they're putting out all these applications in their resume, and they're not hearing anything back. And so I had a couple people that were like, that basically were using me as like a life coach, and I didn't even really know it, and because I would just tell people, I'd say, hit me up if you need help, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling like you need a positive word, I'll be here for you. And I just started doing that, and people started hitting me up, and now people come in here and they kind of tell me what their goals are and what their struggles are, and I create a plan for them to overcome those things or work through them, or to just ask yourself, like, Esther, I'll tell you what, like, growing up, I was never taught to ask questions about my beliefs or about how the world works. And I was very much under this mentality that I'm a victim. This is my card that I've been given in life. I'm not very smart, but I'm a hard worker. And so I'll never be as good as this person or that person, or I could never make $100,000 in 1 year. All these things that people tell you growing up, that you don't really think about, but you get to be at a point where you're about 30 and you're like, wait a second, life has to be better than this.
Yeah, and like we have beliefs that we don't even want to accept we have them. Like, for example, me, I was like, I don't want to believe that the only way for me to leave my parents' house is if I get married, and then this person is the reason why I have to, move out. Like, back then, I was like, I don't want to believe that. I don't believe that rationally, but
Yeah.
emotionally, that was like deep in my DNA, and it was my experience.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like some of the beliefs are so embedded in who we are that you can't, it's hard to unthink them. It's hard to let go of them.
And especially about money, like when I talk to people about that and they want more money, like most of the times they're like, of course I want more money, of course I do, right? Rationally. But like inside, if you have this emotional situation where you think if you make more money than your older brother, then you're hurting him or something.
Oh yeah,
So it's irrational, but emotionally maybe makes sense. And then even though you're like there saying, I don't care, I want to make more money, I want that job that pays this much or whatever, like you tune it down or something because you don't want to surpass people that you think you shouldn't surpass, or
yeah,
your thing.
yeah. It's very true. Or like, you know, growing up, my parents kind of taught me like, it's okay to make like a decent amount of money, but not too much, because then you'll start to get greedy, and then or you'll start to become too materialistic. You'll want to buy stuff, and like you'll think that'll make.
Yeah,
What's that?
like you'll change.
Yeah, and I disagree with that. Like I think it's okay to, if you believe that something is worth, and there's no rules, like, that was something I had to come to terms with coaching, was like, if I'm going to charge somebody, like, in my mind I was like, am I really going to charge money like just for people to like spend time talking to me? And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, I would do that. Like, I would pay somebody. I pay people money to like talk to hear them talk, or I pay for their books. I pay for their, like, their words. I pay for their insights. So like, why wouldn't do I believe that about myself? And I think now I've been doing this for 4 years. I've been off on my own. I've had this just like crazy journey that I think I came to the point where I was like, people would, I've learned enough that I feel like I can give to somebody else and it has value now. A year ago, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have felt like I was that far into my journey to have like charge money, or to like put myself out there as a coach. But now I do. So it goes back to like what you're saying about alignment, is like, now my beliefs are like aligned with that. So
And that is like, I congratulate you for that, because I think that the main reason why I got the certification is because I had the belief that I needed something to validate my services. I needed something to have so that I could put my website up and say Esther Life Coach, like,
yeah.
if not, then like, who am I to say or to coach people or to charge for it if I didn't myself like pay for a certification or get a degree on something? And honestly, like I feel like the certification I got served me in many ways, but not necessarily in teaching me to coach. I feel like I can do the same thing that I did before because I share from my experience and I kind of like pass what I'm learning. Like that's kind of what I'm doing. But at the same time, it helped me to realize that about myself, that I felt like I needed a paper, like something to back up my words, you know, as
Yeah.
people weren't going to just trust, like for example, in graphic design, like when I get a client for like to develop their branding or whatever, like they never ask me for my degree, right?
Right. Yeah. Your work speaks for itself. Yeah. Yeah. They see what you've done already and they like it. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I needed to put that into perspective and be like, why is it that in graphic design I feel confident enough to be like, this is how much this is, and I'm good at it. I don't have to show you my credentials. This is it. And in coaching, because it was this new thing, and it seemed like because I'm really passionate about it, it's easier and I enjoy it more. And then I was like, well, if I'm enjoying it and it feels easy, should it really bring me money and should it be
Yeah.
my main source of like joy? This doesn't make sense. Like
Yeah.
it's fishy.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a belief that I've had too, is like, um, with my recruiting and like helping people find employees and stuff, sometimes it's really, really easy and the stars align and, you know, they hire this person and the process is very simple and and it just feels like there's no bumps in the road and the check comes and the check, you know, and I get paid. And sometimes at the beginning, I would wonder, I would be like, am I really, is this, it's not always, I understand it's probably not always going to be this easy, but I like how this is, you know, would feel bad. I'm like, maybe I'm just really good at what I do at doing it, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I agree. I feel like what you said is sometimes I feel like, well, should I be accepting money if it's this easy? I feel like it should be harder, right? And like, no, I like what's funny about that is like a person with a different mindset would be like, no, if it's easy and you're getting paid for it, that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think the like the key to that is that it's because you're enjoying it. Like it's because you like it that it becomes easier because I don't know, like hold on, let me put this thought in my mind.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like this is the thing. When I was like working as a designer before the mindset that I could be in control of my clients, my story, the paychecks, all that, like it felt like I was like going down a waterfall, you know, not a waterfall, like a water slide, you know, in this like big parks that have like water slides made out of
Yeah.
plastic. I felt like I was going down the water slide. um it was my dream, right? Going down this water slide. And I was going, but my skin was dry and the water slide was dry. Like, have you ever been on a water slide that it doesn't have water running? And so
Yeah.
you're like with the plastic and it's
Yeah.
like your skin is not like the dream was just like it was too much friction in it.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this shit is hard. I thought it was gonna be so fun to have my own business and going down this water slide, but it's all friction and I'm kind of tired of it and I'm pushing myself and like gravity is not helping me. What the fuck is wrong? Or you know? And
Yeah.
then I was like, when I turn on the I'm not a victim, I can change my story and I can attract clients that would pay me and projects that would be enjoyable. It's like somebody turned on the water. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes. I love the way
yeah,
you put that. Yeah.
this is how a water slide should feel like. And it's, you know, it flows and there's no friction, things happen. And sometimes you cannot even help it. But you're going down. You just have to go down because the law of gravity it gets activated when you eliminate the friction. And the law of gravity was always there. It was just that because of your situation, you were going against it. And so,
Yeah.
and so it's the same thing that happens with the law of attraction. It's always there, right? It is there, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, you think it's crazy, woo woo, or whatever, you know? But you can be going down the water slide, like with all this fucking friction, with your beliefs of I'm not worth it, this is weird, my big brother is going to resent me, my dad is gonna think I'm crazy, my mom is going to be depressed because I'm not having bazillion babies, you know, all these things. And so, and then that's you going down the water slide with the law of attraction, but you are having all this friction. And once you understand what you're doing wrong, you turn on the water and then you can't help it, but you attract situations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was so much like that with, you know, and what's funny is like when we worked for Acquire the Fire and all that, like I was the guy that was on the phone that would be like, I was really good at closing the deals, you know, and like, but when it came to my own business, it was harder for me to talk about money with people and be like, oh, well, this is how I would have a fear that I wasn't charging too much. I would have the fear that I was charging too little and that people would like laugh at me and be like, huh, you're only charging this much. It gets worth way more than that, you know? And so I just wouldn't want to talk about it. I had that resistance, you know? And once I just kind of started opening up, and then I also had the mindset that like, everybody wants me to help them, but nobody wants to pay. That was a thing that in my mind for so long, for probably about a year. And I would get clients and stuff like that, but it would be really difficult, and it would be like I was still building it, so it was like few and far between. And now the clients come so much easier because I've had it. I've had the experience of I've had clients that want to pay and that like are willing that, and I've done a good job and I've like completed projects and stuff. So I have experience to back it up, but I had to believe that before all that happened, I had to believe that there are people out there that want to work with you, and then I have to still have that conversation though. So I have to get comfortable talking about, okay, well, hey, here, I'm going to need this much up front, and I'm going to need this, and I'm going to need that. And like, and yeah. So once I started to believe it, it starts to come a lot easier, and like, it starts to just flow instead of this weird, like, resistance, restraint, you know what I mean? There's so much, and I think that that's one of the benefits I think of working with a coach is like helping someone realize, well, you have all these beliefs and all these thoughts that are holding you back. If you change, like when I started to change on the inside and started to walk around and act as if, oh yeah, well, it costs money to like work with me. Like, you know, I have an office, I have these things that like I have to pay for. Um, Other people started noticing and started coming to me, and they started bringing it up, like, how much do you charge? How, you know, and it started to become easier. But it is like, there's so much, something that I wish more entrepreneurs would start talking about, and that I like that you're talking about, is the amount of personal development and personal growth that you have to go through if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because it's not all the business part isn't necessarily all that hard. I don't think so. I don't think it's really all that hard to, like, you know, you have to have, you know, you get money and you have it's very simple. It's, you know, you have income and you have expenses, stuff that you have to pay for, and you have, you know, it's money in, money out. But like, uh the hard part is like, for me was the personal growth, and the more that I've like just focused on that, the
So,
more that I see things starting to like unfold.
yeah, no, absolutely. But you haven't shared like how did it happen for you? Because like what happened when that made you be like, oh, this exists, this is a thing,
Like law of attraction.
yeah, like, or the power of your mind, or however it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah. Okay. It started around the same. So it started around the time that I quit all of like my part-time jobs and started doing this full time, and that was like in 2015, August or September of 2015. I went up and visited a friend of mine in Chicago. He's on a radio show called Mason and Remy, and his name's Remy. And he was the guy that introduced me to meditation. He's introduced me to law of attraction. And we would always have these really deep, I've been on he has a podcast too, called Fearlessly Create. You might really like it. Check it out. And I'll send you a link to it or something. But I started, and I was skeptical at first because I was at a point where I didn't know if I believed the religious things anymore that I believed growing up, and that there were a lot of limitations with religion. There was a lot of like gray areas of like, what is a sin and what isn't? Who says what, who does the judgment? So I had kind of a hard time with that. And I was at a point where I was bouncing a lot of ideas, and I was just kind of like, I didn't know really what I believed at the time. And I wasn't quite sold on the idea of you could create your own reality, but I started testing. Go ahead.
When you were doubting old beliefs and religious ideas and things, like, was that affecting you emotionally? Were you like...
Yeah, I think it was. Not it wasn't really making me depressed, but I would question whether or not I thought I was a good person, because under what guidelines am I a good person? And I'm not a bad person by any means. I'm really positive, and I just try to love people instead of and keep an open mind. I try not to judge people at all. But if I had a hard time I didn't want to believe the whole, I believe that Jesus and his teachings are good, and that if you want to follow him and you want to follow what his life and the example that he set, then that's great. I think that there are different churches and different sections of Christianity that I don't necessarily agree with anymore. You know what I mean? So, but I still was oh.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So just the organization of it, and there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of judgment and there's a lot of different people think a lot of different things, but they're all saying that they're Christian. It's people don't also necessarily, people that claim, a lot of people in Christianity now that claim to be Christians and go to church all the time are not necessarily following the teachings of Christ. You know what I'm saying? To the fullest extent. They're kind of doing, and it's not for me to judge, but I just, what I feel like Jesus and all religions are saying is treat others how you would want to be treated. And I don't know if everybody necessarily grasps what that really means. You know what I mean? In everyday life, even in something as simple as traffic, would you want, if you're stuck in traffic and you're honking on your horn and shaking your fist at people, would you want somebody to do that to you? You know what I mean? No, I hate when people give me the finger and so no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna calm myself. I'm gonna be chill.
You know what I do? Well, I don't necessarily do it for noble reasons. I do it because I like to freak out people. But when somebody yells at me or give me the finger or are telling me that I'm stupid or that I need to see or pay attention, things like that, I send them a kiss.
That's funny.
They get all weirded out. They're as they're yelling at me, I do that, and then they're like, "What the shit?" And then I just, but I don't really do it because I love them. I actually do them with a little bit of sarcasm.
Sure. No, it's so. Anyways, I'm getting off track, but all these things that were bouncing around in my mind, and the idea, I started to read. I read the first book that I read that really hit home for me it's an old book. It's called Think and Grow Rich, and it's one of the first books that touches on the law of attraction, even though he never says that in the book. And it's about creating the mindset and the beliefs and being persistent and all that. And So that was my first gateway into all
Why
this.
did you read that book? Was it the title? Were you looking for like success, money, and that was it? Or
I think it was so multiple people had told me to read it. But yeah, I was looking for how can I be successful in business, and I didn't want to read any of these books about like that were really dense business books. I kind of needed something that was like a higher way of thinking, and that was the book that really started it for me. And uh, then I started reading some. What else did I read? Oh, The Four Agreements was another one, which is just like a spiritual awakening book that it talks about multiple religions. And I was kind of like, okay, well, this is really interesting to me. I was like, this is a book that it's not a Christian book, it's not a Buddhist book, it's just kind of a book about how to live in a peaceful way, in a spiritual way, and how to kind of respect everything and everyone. And I could get behind that. It's the Four Agreements, so it's like 4 rules to live by, to like basically be at peace and find inner peace. And so I started having more conversations with people about that. I was still very at the beginning, like I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with you like this because I wasn't strong enough in my beliefs about this kind of stuff. But I started doing like what you were saying, how in the book you would do the exercise right away. So with Think and Grow Rich, it has tons of exercises like that where it says like, write a certain amount of money down. Tells you how to set a goal, basically, like write it down, talk with intention how you're going to get that money, put the amount with the date that you're going to get it by. And I started doing that every month. I would write down, I want $3,000 this month. I'm so grateful that I'm going to get it through doing this and doing that and all this. And lo and behold, that like I hit that goal several times. And there were multiple times where I just like crushed it. And I was like, okay, this works more than anything else that I've done. And meditating, all these other things that I was doing that were like kind of helping with that.
I was going to say that I remember finding it very liberating to know that I could be specific, because before that, I always thought, well, you can pray or ask or visualize maybe being successful or having something good, but you can never be specific, never, because you never
Yeah.
know, and you shouldn't put things in a box or things like that. But then I realized that maybe that was just a story, in my mind, that you can never really get what you ask for. Like you'll get something, that will maybe satisfy the need, but it's rare that it's going to be specific. Maybe because I developed that belief from like childhood, where I would like want like a specific toy or a specific Barbie doll or something, and I would get something close to it, but never like the specific same one. And I just realized how I had that like a belief deep inside of me that I was like, well, you can't really choose,
Yeah.
and that was kind of liberating when I was like, really, should I like put a number? Yeah, put a number. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. And it was, I think there is something to be said for, you know, being setting realistic goals too. Like I would always say I would make it something that like, okay, and I would stretch maybe a little bit. If I've only made $3,000 in one month, maybe next month I try to make 4,000. And then the month after that I try to make 5. And sometimes I would go way beyond that. Sometimes I would get really, really close to it, but I wouldn't quite hit it. But I would always be right around where I set my goal. I would never be like, oh, that was completely unrealistic. You weren't not even close to it. I would always come within like a couple $100, or I would sometimes be over. I would like get over my goal. So it's the thing that I liked about law of attraction and all these other things that I was doing was that I was able to test it and say, I didn't need to say like, I just believe it, that it's something that I can't see and that I have faith that it exists. It was like, no, I can actually sit down and put these plans into action and show people how it's worked for me. Like I have real world examples, and like I'm a really big person on experience. Like I know what my experience is, and I can't necessarily judge someone else because I haven't had the same experiences that they've had, you know? So I want to experience everything. I want to go, I want to travel. I want to see all different places. I want to meet people from all different backgrounds because I want to learn from them and their experiences. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I started realizing, oh, well, this is just, I don't have like a Bible or something that I'm saying like, here's this ancient relic book that like I believe to be true. It's like, no, this is just my experience. This is what I've done. And this is like, I want to share it with other people and see if they can learn from it too. And that's where a lot of my motivational speaking comes in, is from like, oh, I just like you, I have all these beliefs in my mind. I still have them. I sat in my chair over here yesterday and did a meditation, and I just started going through and asking myself questions like, because I can feel a little bit of anxiety about stuff. Being an entrepreneur, there's a little bit of like, it creeps in and you're like, okay, am I worthy? Am I doing like, with, especially when I host events, I want everybody to have a good time, and I'm worried like that they won't. Well, why am I worried that they won't? Well, have an insecure belief that like I won't be able to deliver a good speech, or I won't be able to host a good, well, that's completely false, because I've hosted like 50 events in the past. They've all been successful. Everyone's had a good time, and nobody's been talking shit about how they didn't have a good time. So that's just me in my own mind playing tricks on me, So just kind of like unfolding the layers.
Pep talking to you, no?
What's that?
Like your inner self is giving you a pep talk.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but my mind, my human mind is like, it can just be your own worst enemy, and so
what I tell people is that you are not going to arrive to this place of complete certainty about everything. It's kind of like you will develop the muscle to react to the uncertainty quicker, better, easier with practice, but it's still there. You're just more efficient to turn on the water and flow.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think like what you're talking about, like reaction and stuff, is that's what meditation has helped me with. Is you can have a thought in your mind and immediately react to it. You can have a thought about, let's say you leave your house and you're like, oh my gosh, did I leave the stove on? And you start freaking out about it, and you start having anxiety that you left the stove on, and or whatever, teapot, something at home that could start a fire. Where instead, if you could say, or something about a bill, oh my god, I got this bill coming up in 2 weeks, I don't have the money, how am I going to pay it? And you can freak out about it and have anxiety about it, or you can just look at it as like, that is something that I have to take care of. I will take care of it. Everything's like, you don't have to necessarily have anxiety or like attach an emotion to every thought that you have. You know what I mean? But sometimes that's where I tell people too, like it's a practice though, because sometimes there's no time between the thought and the emotion to the gap is so minimal that like you think about something and it'll immediately make you sad, or it'll immediately make you afraid. So you just have to practice the like widening that gap of the thought and the emotion. You know what I mean? Because it's a practice. It doesn't, and the more and more that I've meditated, and the more that I do these things, you start to filter out, no, that's not true. No, that's going to be okay. No. And you start to feel, like you said, the water starts to flow, and you start to get into more of this place of like, even though there are all these shitty things happening around me, and there's all these situations that I have to deal with, and I have debt, and I have to take care of these finances, and I have to, get more money, and I have to find more clients, like, and all those things cause you so much stress and anxiety. In the moment, you can actually feel you can just like choose to not let them cause you anxiety and feel abundance instead, and I feel like it's that trust
to like take the place of the observer.
Yes.
Like just as a little parenthesis, I joined this mastermind called the Society, and the Society it's about like reconnecting into your body and lose this like restriction binge mentality that diets bring into the culture
Yeah.
for women, but still it's there, right? And so I was reading this book that is incredible. It's called The 4-Day Win by Marta Beck, and it talks about how whenever you are in between like making a choice, like a super quick choice of like restricting or binging, you need to understand that you're not either the binger or the restrictor. You are the observer, and you can learn to see how a part of you wants to rebel and like go down the path of anxiety or binging or
Yeah.
worrying, or also into the place of like this authority that is like, you know, getting disappointed or thinking that you failed again or something like that, and just learn that you are not either one of those. Like you can observe and then make a decision once you you know what's happening. You can see the sensation, you can feel this emotion, and then you can take a moment to breathe in and then observe and maybe make a choice from love and not from
Yeah.
some sort
Yeah.
of rush.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's so hard, especially with things like um especially with somebody you love, like your parents or your wife or your significant other or your friends. Your ego will be like, "Oh, I want to," like, and it's so hard to not like give into that. It's so hard to like sometimes like you immediately want to be like, "Oh my God, well, like you hate me," or like you want to like retaliate, or you want to just like give into that ego thought, and it's you have a lot of times like the need to defend. It's like somebody says something and you want to immediately be like, "No, I'm not like that. No, how dare you?" And
That's
when
not what I believe. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah.
right, exactly, and you want to get all hyped up. I do sometimes, and I've learned to just be like, no, that actually doesn't get me anywhere. When I respond out of like anger or a need to defend or protect myself, it actually like makes the problem worse than when I just kind of stop and realize like, what is this person really saying? What is my wife really worried about? What is my friend really trying to tell me? And maybe there's something going on with him. I don't know. um and when I do that and come from a place of love, like you're saying, and understanding, and not taking things personal, I know sometimes that like people will say things to me or you or to you, whatever, the collective you. People will say things to you that will come off as hurtful, but they're saying them because they themselves feel insecure. Like that's one of the 4 agreements is never take anything personal. When even if it seems like someone is saying something, calling you a name or trying to hurt you, it's because they themselves feel anger or rage or frustration, or they're hurt or they're disconnected, or they're jealous or something like that. They want to try to tear you down. It doesn't have anything to do with you. And that was something that also flipped my paradigm, that I was like, oh, wait a second, like not everybody's out to get me. People say and do bad things, even if people physically hurt you or try to kill, or like wars and stuff like that, it's because of they themselves feel threatened or they feel the need to protect. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it makes me really sad, because I'm like, if more people would do this work and figure out what's going on inside themselves, we'd see a lot more peace.
So I want to ask you
Yeah.
about your meditation practice, because I feel like a lot of people get I don't know, just confused and they don't know how to start, and they sometimes it seems too easy that they just don't do it, or they think they're doing it wrong. There's like a lot of confusion on how to start. So tell us how you started.
Uh, I literally started using this app. I started with an app called Headspace.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of it? Or
Yes, I
um,
actually did it. Like the free.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did this free 10 days, and I did 10 days in a row. And uh, at first I remember just kind of feeling like a little bit more relaxed after I would do the meditations, and the guy guides you through and tells you like how to kind of think about things and how to it's, you know, it's all guided. And um, I really just liked what you said about playing the part of the observer, just observing your thoughts, not judging them, not thinking too much about them, not attaching myself to them. And I've just forced myself every day to do at least 10 minutes a day of uh, trying not to either attach emotions to my thoughts or just not even think anything at all. And just now I've gotten more to that point where I can go into a meditation and just have no thoughts. Not always. Sometimes it's easier than others. Depends on what kind of day and what's bothering me. You know, if I've gotten into an argument with my wife about something, it's going to be a lot harder than if uh, everything's been good that day. You know, and it comes from a more positive place. So um, I would say that I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I think just sitting quietly at first for 5 minutes, you know, even 2 or 3 minutes, and trying to just take deep breaths. And a lot of times I'll go into a meditation with an intention, like I'm going to be grateful and practice gratitude during this meditation. And maybe I'll think thoughts of just, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. And other times I'll say, I'm just going to go into this and give my mind a break, and I'm not going to think anything. I'm just going to try to go into a more meditative state. And you become more of the observer. And that's what's interesting to me is um, you know, our mind, like for a while I felt like there are two parts of me, my mind, and then this other part that's aware of my mind. And the part that's aware of my mind is like, that is that is consciousness, that is awareness, is of what we are, is consciousness. And as I started to kind of recognize that, I was like, wow, well, meditation for me now is like connecting with my higher self. Like if the I am the me being the observer is my higher self, that's me connecting with who I am. And yeah, so I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. There's tons of, I use this app now called Insight Timer, and it has tons of guided meditations on it that you can use. It has it tracks your progress and stuff, so it kind of keeps me accountable. And yeah, I recommend it. I recommend that to anybody. Headspace is great to get started, but Insight Timer is really good. And now I find that I crave those times. I really like my meditation times. I'm like, after we get off the phone here, or the computer, I'm gonna do some meditation. And it's like I look forward to it because I'm like, it's gonna be a time where I can just like be at peace and just exist. You know what I mean? Without like the pressures of my mind.
Totally. So I want you to tell me, like, I want you to talk to the audience about this paradigm shift. Like,
Yeah.
how does that start? Like, if somebody's listening to this episode and they're like, what? Like, you know,
Yeah.
you and me, we were once there. Like, I feel drawn to this, but I have no idea what's happening. I feel like there's two types of people. The people are like, I can create something, I can use my mind, there's power in what I focus on. Okay, I want to get rid of this friction. Like, I'm not understanding, but I'm drawn to it and I want to know more. And there's like the other type of people are like, nah, like this is just a coincidence. You're seeing what you want to see, you know, the aseptic types.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people I want you to like talk to is the first batch. Like the first batch that is kind of like you feel like the butterflies in your stomach, that this is something that you should pay attention to, that maybe this is something you're looking for, but sometimes you just don't know where to begin.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would think anybody that listens to your podcast or my podcast, they're probably on the brink of a paradigm shift if they're not there already, you know? So I think the first thing for me, the way to get started for me was to start asking, questioning everything like that I had thought about up until this point. Like, why do I believe the things that I believe? Is it because my parents taught me these things? If, you know, I was never taught, I was taught that it was not good to ask questions and that you should just accept things and you shouldn't rock the boat. And when I started asking questions, why do I believe this? Why do I go to college? Why is it so important to get a degree? Why do people go to work every day? Do people think about, um, you know, I had also read this, another thing along the lines of Think and Grow Rich was uh, this audio recording called The Strangest Secret. And it's from like the 1950s. And it talks about most people don't know why they go to work. If you talk to, uh, you know, 10 people walking out of a corporate office and you ask like, why do you work here? You know, and people would be like, well, because I get a paycheck. Well, why do you need the paycheck? You know what I mean? Like, do you like working here? Do you want to work here? Like, how did you get this job? And this happens a lot when I work with people with job coaching is I ask them like, how did you get to this point that you're in now? And they're like, oh, I kind of fell into it, you know, unintentionally. They just like, and that's how I was. It's like, I just kind of fell into these jobs. But when I started asking why do I work here? Why do I go here every day? I couldn't come up, and why do I believe the things that I believe? I couldn't come up with good answers to those questions. Even something, I don't eat meat anymore. I'm vegetarian. Like I never asked myself, why do we eat meat? Is it good for us? Is it like, it doesn't, do we have to? Can I survive without it? You know, like, so when I started asking these questions, I started realizing like, so I think the first thing, how do you get started? If you want to shift the way that you think, question everything first. Open your mind to the possibility that what you've been taught might not be true. You know what I mean? Our parents, they want the best for us, but we are our own people. We're individuals, and like what they might think is best for us or what they might want for us might not be what's best for us, you know?
Especially because as you said before, like they're also acting from their experience. And so
Yes, yes.
like if they didn't have the experience of success, they can't teach you that you will. And so that's how generational like limiting beliefs fall into like the next and the next and the next, not because they're mean or bad or they want to harm us, just because
Right.
you talk from your experience when you don't where you're not aware that you're at the wheel.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't believe that I was at the wheel. I thought that like this is just my place in life. This is what I've been given. And um, once you kind of start to take your power back and start to own, no, I don't want to live this kind of life. I want something better. Than going to this job every day that I hate and working with people that I don't really like and that are kind of mean and petty and snippy and snarky and I want to work with positive people. I want to have more interactions with people like yourself, Esther. Like and once you start just even having intentions like that for the day, today, I try to do this when I'm in the shower because I think it's like a time where you're not really distracted. Um, I start to set intentions. Today, I want to be productive. I need to get this done. I need to get that done. Today, I'm tracking affirmations, basically, you know, that I start to play into my mind because I'm like, if you're just going through life not knowing what you want or not knowing what you want to do, you'll just do anything. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even know the things, even things as little as I used to play music and I used to think it was pointless. For a long time I didn't play music for like almost 10 years because I thought it was pointless because I'm not going to make any money at it. So it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. It's hard to like get up all this creative energy and like, you know, put like write songs and stuff like that. It's not enjoyable. And once I just was like, you know what? No, I'm 35 years old. If I want to play music, it's now or never. I'm not going to pick this back up when I'm 50 years old and start playing guitar and want to like, you know, book concerts and stuff like that. So Yeah, I feel like I got off on a tangent there. Sorry.
Yeah, it's an interesting tangent. So you were saying that basically you were saying that if you don't know where you go, it doesn't matter which way that you
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't
walk,
matter.
right?
And setting that intention of I think that's when we really start to create, is like, this is what I want and I'm working towards it. And that in and of itself, even though that's not a very specific goal, just people don't know what they want. I didn't know what I wanted. And so I was just kind of like floating out here, taking a job, and wherever life took me, that's where I went. And sometimes it took me to places that I didn't want to be. And because I wasn't setting any type of intention of, this is where I want to be, and once I start to set intentions, um, those things start to, like, there is a little bit of magic to, like, um, if in just even in my mind, I started saying, I want to do more speaking gigs. I want to do more speaking gigs. I want to do more speaking gigs. Like, more, you're tuning your frequency to that, and you're starting to notice, or more thoughts will come up. The law of attraction, you'll start to attract more thoughts of how to get more speaking engagements, how to make more money, how to attract the right person into your life, the more that you think about it. And then it becomes you still have to do all the steps and, like, put all the work in, but, like, it's like, it's just attracting the thing that you want, that's in your mind, and into physical. I don't know, it's like such a weird, it's such a weird thing, and I don't know if I'll ever fully understand it, but I love talking about it, because it really is. It's I've just seen it happen in my own life, and I'm like, if I can do that, it's just crazy.
Some experiences that you have had about this, like when you have set an intention to accomplish something, to live an experience, or to get something material maybe, and how it happened, and how you knew that it was like that everything started in your mind. Like,
Yeah.
I love to
So
hear the stories. I feel like the inspiration gets contagious, and
yeah. Well, earlier this year, I started. So I've been doing the motivational speaking stuff for a couple of years now, but the last year I didn't do too many, and it kind of tapered off. But that was also because I will only do them now if I'm getting paid something for it. So, like, a lot of times if people ask, I say no, because I can't always take time away from my day-to-day life and go do a speak to a classroom or something for free. So but sometimes I do, because I want to. So earlier this year, I thought, I was having kind of a slow day, and I just thought, I really want to do more speaking engagements. I really have enjoyed doing that, and I would like more of those opportunities. And I started I thought, I'm going to hold that thought in my mind for the rest of the day. When my mind wanders, I want it to go back to more speaking engagements. And so I was driving around. I was just kind of doing whatever I wanted that day. I'd kind of taken a day off, and um, that was on a Thursday. And a couple days later, I didn't email anybody. I didn't put a tweet out. I didn't put anything on Instagram saying, like, hey, people, I want to do more speaking gigs. But that was on a Thursday. That following Monday, I got 2 emails from 2 different people saying, one, we want you to come speak. And another one was from a talent agency that said that they wanted to talk to me about being on their roster as like a speaker, and they would be like my agent. So those were 2 things. Then a couple weeks later, I got another email about another speaking, and these were people that I have worked with in the past, but I hadn't talked to them in a really long time. It'd been 6 months or a year or something. And so I started to just see how, if maybe I wouldn't have thought about that, I don't know, it started in my mind. And that's a very, like, far-fetched example of, like, oh, well, I thought this and I didn't put any action to it other than thinking about it, and it manifested. Other times, I think you have to put together a plan, so with money, if I sit down and I say, I want to make $5,000 this month, I'm going to manifest this into my bank account. You have to have steps of how you're going to do that, and you have to think about it and basically put it in your subconscious. I've done it so much that like I think about these things in a positive way, that I'll have dreams that money is just deposited into my PayPal account. and then maybe the next day I'll get a project, I think a lot of it is having faith and having just the mindset that like a new project is coming, more money is coming, just having that constant kind of mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
And then when you get emails or you meet people, you start to see how things are connected and how, oh, well, if I meet this person, that's why a lot of times I don't turn down opportunities to like do a podcast like this, or something will come from this conversation. Someone will hear it and it will affect them, and or we'll meet somebody that from my audience will get to know you, your audience will get to know me. We're like making these connections stronger. Somebody will hear it and become a client of yours or mine or something. And if you don't, a lot of times if I don't do these meetings or if I don't do these podcasts, or if somebody is introducing me to someone and I don't make that connection, then nothing happens, but if I do, then something happens. And sometimes you don't know where that's going to lead, but further on, a year from now, I'll be like, oh, I'm really glad that I met that person. He introduced me to that person who became a client that, paid me so I could pay my bills that month. And then that person, it's just like, I see so many things like that now where people that I've met in the past, I've helped them find a job now, which has then in turn, of course, been income for me that I really needed at the time. So everything is connected. It really is. It blows my mind when I really think about it.
It also, like, now you just, when you were saying that sometimes you just don't do speaking gigs because you charge now, and that's like, I believe that's the right way to do it. You have to up level at sometimes. You have to know
Yeah.
what to do. But then when you do accept to doing things, like, it has a lot to do with being able to listen to your own intuition.
Yes.
When to say yes, when to say no, when to make room for something new, and when to create like I don't know, like an up level opportunity so that you can like stretch your ability to believe in yourself and your value,
Yeah.
How do you distinguish that voice? Like, is it like a feeling that you get? Is it just like an immediate automatic certainty, or how do you experience it?
That's a really good question, and that's something that I've been trying to be better at this, especially this year, is just focus on intuition. And I think like if it feels right away, then it's probably the right thing. You know what I mean? If sometimes if it feels, if I'm presented with an opportunity and it feels like because sometimes I will be thinking I want to do more speaking stuff, and somebody will present and say, hey, we want you to come speak at this class. We don't have a budget, but we can give you a $10 gift card to Starbucks or whatever. And I'll notice, okay, well, that's something that I just had that thought, and I was trying to attract more opportunities like this, so I'm going to take this one. Other times, if it doesn't feel right, and I can't, it's definitely more of a feeling for me. If it doesn't feel like aligned with what I'm trying to do or who I am, or if the pieces don't seem to be falling into place as seamlessly. But then also sometimes it could be my mind getting in the way, So
when the fear creeps in, and
yeah,
it's hard not to fall into it doesn't feel right, or I don't feel like growing right now.
yeah. No, exactly. So yeah, it's sometimes I do take a little bit of time. If something presents itself, I'll kind of be like, I don't know if this feels right, and I don't know why. So let me just like think about this and work through it a little bit. And I also think sometimes there's it's good to do your research about certain stuff. You know, uh, it's just good to sometimes think things, take a little bit of extra time to think about them. But there are some times where right off the bat, I feel like things are right or wrong. And I'll be like, I don't think I should do this, So, but I have had times before where I've turned down, this was a couple of years ago. I had an opportunity to do a speech here in St. Louis. And I turned it down. I said, I just can't do this anymore if I'm not getting paid. And I felt bad. I felt really bad about it because I felt like maybe I should do it. And in my mind, I thought, for every opportunity that I turn down that I don't get paid for, another one will present itself that I will get paid for. And the next week, another opportunity from out of town, somebody emailed me and said, like, would you come out here? Here's how much we can pay, and we'll give you lunch and everything. So it was like, I don't know. I feel like something changed inside me, and maybe the universe picks up on that and says, like, oh, well, he's charging now, so give him people that are willing to pay. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I like to think, I like to live my life with a little bit of like, and I like to believe that there's a little bit of mysticism or like cosmic energy, or that there's a little bit of magic out there, like pulling things together. You know what I mean? You can say that they're not coincidences and things are just kind of happening, but I like the mystery a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Me too. It's the romantic part,
Yeah. It's more of the like, oh wow, well no, things are really, I don't know, it inspires me a little bit more than to believe that we're just out here and that, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think, man, I'm gonna have to edit things like.
Yeah, I know.
But I love it because I feel like it comes with more feeling, like with more. It just comes naturally in the conversation, just to start talking and asking questions, just the way they appear. It's part of the romanticism that I want to put into the podcast.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just to the audience, like, what do you do right now? Is that you have a podcast, you play punk music.
I do,
you do speaking engagements, you are starting to coach people one-on-one. And what else? Like, what's on your plans? What's in your purpose? What are you trying to?
So I'm hosting. I do networking events and special events here in St. Louis too. I do recruiting. So I work in a lot of with a lot of creative companies. So I help them find graphic designers and web developers and copywriters and social media strategists and stuff like that. So those are all my different things that I do for business. So I have an event that I'm doing on May 30th on Wednesday. And it's the first event that I've hosted in a while. But one thing that is in the not too distant future that I'm planning, I've taken this weekend to actually kind of put down on paper, is I want to do and maybe you can be involved in this somehow, Esther. This would be awesome. I want to do a personal growth and like self-care conference, like a weekend conference, where people will come here to St. Louis and we'll do meditations. We'll have conversations like this about how to think. It'll have to do with so it'll be anything that has to do with personal growth and self-care. So we'll talk about conscious eating, health, physical, how to take care of your body. There'll be a session on that. There'll be a session on thinking in a different way, life coaching type stuff, how to launch your career. I would even want something of how to attract the right partner into your life. And I'll have all these different people. Yeah. I'll have all these different people give different sessions, and at night we'll have music, we'll have concerts, we'll have just celebrations of life where there'll be music playing and people dancing and drinking and having fun, but it'll also be very peaceful and just a weekend of introspection and reflection. And I want to plan something like that.
So this, you're visualizing this as as a retreat or like a convention of.
Yeah, yeah, like I guess it could be a retreat or like a conference. Yeah, kind of like the stuff that we used to do at teen, with the, it's kind of like that. Not as big, but very intimate and very like, I would love to have a session on the law of attraction, a session on let's journal and get some of these how to become the observer of your thoughts. A journaling session where people just like sit down and get their thoughts out. So like anything that has to do with like just focusing on your future, living with intention, taking care of yourself, self-help, self-growth, all of that. So I've been planning it out. I'd like to do it by the end of the year, maybe in the fall sometime. So
it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that's something that I'm planning. And I want more people. I feel like a lot more people are starting to kind of wake up and see things differently. And I want to help be a catalyst for that. I want to help other people see that. And yeah.
And tell me about your environment. Like, are you in the middle of a group of people that are like conscious of all of this or not?
Am I now?
Yes.
I'm definitely starting to attract more people. The more that I talk about this, like the more that I start to just find people that are understand, like yourself, and people on Instagram, and a lot more people even just here in St. Louis, as I start to bring up some different books that I've read or different concepts of like, and I start to talk about meditation and stuff like that, more and more people just start showing up that are into the same thing. Granted, I think that people like you and I are attracting those people into our lives. There's still a lot of people out there that need to wake up. There's still a lot of people that need to really take a look at themselves in the mirror and say, like, who am I really being, the kind of person that I want to be? Who do I want to be? Who am I? And I want to help. I think a conference like this, even this conversation, will help people with that, and the more people that do that, like I said, the more peace we'll have, and the more like less judgment and less fighting and less anger we'll have in the world. And so I can't, I don't know. I'm not trying to change the world, but I'm trying to change people in their mind, like one at a time. And I want to help people be the best versions of themselves. And for a long time, I wasn't, I was just kind of asleep. I was like literally like walking around like a zombie.
Yeah, no, I feel you, because I feel the same way. Like when I realized that, like that gratitude example that I told you, is not like giving thanks or being grateful was a new concept. It's just like a concept that I have heard of, but I never listened.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a cliche of like being a good person and giving thanks. Like it's fine, but is that really a tool for me to feel like I'm in control of my life, to change everything that makes me depressed? Like, is it really a tool to achieve happiness? I didn't see it like that.
Yeah.
And then when it became this thing, like, just give it a try with your whole intention and then see what happens. And then when I did and I saw that, like, everything changed, and I was like, something awakened.
Yeah.
See, the ability to just being in control. And it's not a matter of controlling. That's not a word that I like using, because sometimes that's what we want. We want money because we want to control something. And it's not really about controlling, but feeling like you have a say in the life you live. Like if you have dreams, you can do something to make them a reality. You can create things, opportunities and joy and peace. You can create those things if you think you can.
If you think you can't, then you won't.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. It really, and it sounds so simple and so cheesy sometimes, but it really is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So back to books. I'm a book junkie. And so if you would recommend a book to the audience, would it be that, like Think and Grow Rich? That's the.
Yeah, that would be the one that I would say like right off the bat. That the one that really changed things for me. Another one that I would recommend that's so Think and Grow Rich was written in like the 1930s. So it's pretty old, and so some of the examples are a little like archaic. But one that I read recently, have you read this book called The Power of Now?
Oh, by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really like that one. I read it just a few months ago, and I'm reading another book of his called A New Earth right now. And those two are really good. Another one that I read recently is called The Untethered Soul.
Oh, the one, there's a horse in the
Yeah.
I have it in my iPad, but I haven't read it. Like I downloaded it. Yeah, but
it's really good. And then and it's kind of like The Power of Now. It's really well written. And if you want a money book about how to change your way on how you think on money, that Jen Sincero wrote this book, You Are a Badass. It's her follow-up, You Are a Badass at Making Money. And it's a really good book about changing your mindset about how you think about money and how you view money. And
she's funny. Like that book made me laugh like
several
times.
Yeah, she has a really good style. It's really entertaining, and but yeah, it has some really practical exercises on how to like reshape the way that you think about money and all that. So it's I really recommend it. It helped me a lot, and it's like I read through it really fast too because it's just written it's really easy to read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I believe that it's a very good book to start. Like, especially also like if people are not used to reading, like a lot of people are like, recommend me a book. I haven't read like a book in like 10 years. Recommend me a book. So I try to go easy so that they won't get scared. Like, hard.
Have you read the book? I haven't read this yet, but a lot of people have been reading it. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh, no. I started it, but it wasn't mine, and the book got removed from my house when...
Oh. Yeah, I haven't read that yet, but everybody keeps telling me that I should read it, but I feel like it's probably along the same lines as a lot of the stuff that I read, so.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, Wesley, tell us, where can people find you?
Online, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. The main account that I've been using is just at Wesley Hoffman, and it's the same on Twitter and Instagram. And then my business is Treehouse Network with no O in work. So it's Treehouse Network. And then on Spotify, you can find my podcast, which Esther, I would love to have you as a guest. Maybe later on this week or next weekend, we could do another call. And
I would love it.
Yeah, we could turn the tables because I'd love to have you as a guest. It's Wes Hoffman with Friends, and it's on iTunes and Spotify and Podomatic. And then I also have my music is on Spotify. It's just, if you just search Wes Hoffman, it's called Positive Punk. And
and before you go, I do want you to tell us about this. Like, what's going on with Positive Punk? Because I love it, because I always thought of punk as being like this rebellious type of like,
and it kind of is
the rules type of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's about. It's about kind of just like living without any rules, but I really wanted to take it as like a positive spin. So a lot of the music, the songs are about, one song is called Follow Your Heart, and it's just about like living with intention, following your dreams. Another one's called Keep Your Focus, and it's about like, not getting distracted and focusing on the things that you want to see happen in reality. And I have a bunch of other songs that are just fun songs to dance around to. And I did a concert here a couple months ago. It was sold out. We had like 75 people there in a really small space. And it was all just, it's on my Instagram. You can look at the highlights of it. But it was so much fun. I just wanted to create a positive experience for people. Like I used to play music when I was younger, and I loved whenever I would go to a concert somewhere and just like maybe see a band that I didn't know, but I would see all these people, new friends, new people that I wanted to meet. So yeah, I'm working on trying to get more songs up on Spotify. I'm trying to get 6 songs done. I only have like 2 done right now, but
is it only you like
yeah,
create
I write and record all the music, but I have guys that play with me. And then my friend Justin, who plays the drums, he does all the recording. And my best friend from the time I was 18, he plays bass. But yeah, but on the recordings, I played everything except for the drums. So
cool.
yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Hey, and I forgot, I also want to ask you something else. Like, you've been married for a long time, so you know. I don't know yet, but you do. So in all of this, like awakening and being conscious and setting intentions and all these things, trying to be aligned and trying to stop the fear from creeping in and all that, like how is it sharing it with a partner, like when it's such an individual process and an individual understanding of things? How do you share it with your partner?
That's a really good question. I you know, my wife is not so much of we're very different. Like I'm very extroverted and I'm a lot like you, Esther. Like I don't know, I'm very animated. I push myself to be outside of my comfort zone, and not everybody is that way, you know. And I have a drive to just I always want to learn new things about myself, and I always want to I like changing, I like evolving, I like growing. And it's sometimes it's hard, you know. I'll share a book or something. I'll be like, "Oh my God, you really need to read this book." And sometimes my wife will just kind of be like, I'll read it whenever I get around to it, you know.
Yeah.
So there definitely are things that we share. I mean, I realize that like everybody is in a different, and I do push her a lot of times. I'll be like, you need to read this. I really want you to read this so you can at least like understand where I'm at, you know. And she has read some of the books that I've read too, but everybody grows at like a different time. And I don't want to, you know, I definitely don't feel like if she's not reading everything that I'm reading and she's not learning everything that I'm learning, I don't judge that. I don't say like, oh, well, I'm better than you, or like, or you're not trying as hard as me. You know, I still share the things that I've learned, but I try not to push too hard and be like, you need to read this, or like, we're not together anymore, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody has to just kind of like come to, and I don't, you're right, it's a very individualized thing, and I don't want to push it on somebody. And maybe for me, it's reading these books and having these conversations and putting into practice law of attraction. For her, it might be something different, you know. Maybe for her, it's trying, you know, doing something like exercising or running or doing something else that helps, that brings her to this state of mind. So yeah, I try not to be too controlling, I guess. But I do want to share, because I want her to read some of these same things so we can be on the same page. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally. I know what you mean. And the reason why I ask is because this is new to me as well. Like, I totally believe that, like, my husband is one of my biggest, like, manifestations. Like, and I don't it's hard for me to say it because I don't want it to sound like, oh, it's I created him. Like, well, I know I just created like I don't know, like a tunnel, like an invisible emotional tunnel for us to connect in a way that I wanted. But sometimes I don't know, I see myself getting like in this vortex of information and craziness, and like I don't want to feel like I'm shoving it in his throat or something like that, you know, because I don't want to control that. But it's
Right.
I don't know, it's something that I'm experimenting right now, like how and when to share without I don't know, like being pushy or feeling like it's I don't know, like a requirement, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a process, and I think it's something like um I wouldn't want you know, how boring. I mean, I guess part of me is like, well, I wish that I could just show this stuff to you and you would like it as and latch onto it as much as I do. But
Yeah.
you know, how boring would that be in a relationship if like the person just, oh yeah, everything, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes I do want to see like a little bit of effort to just like understand, hey, this is what I'm reading, and like this is I'm changing because I'm reading these books, and I'm like, you know, and I
Mhm.
want you to see how I've changed and what I think about what, you know. So yeah, there's a little bit of there's got to be a little bit of give and take.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
Well, thank you so much, dude.
No,
This
thank you.
I'm like I really hope we can keep in touch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to. And like this plan that you have, like it sounds fantastic. I would love to be involved, but I have to manifest some things before that.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
green card, for example.
Oh yeah. Well, you can come to the United States for like a weekend, right?
No, I cannot.
What?
I know, right? But this is changing. This is changing as we speak. Things are happening out there that will change that pretty
True.
soon.
That's true. Yeah.
Um, so
Well,
I
maybe we
was
could
able
like
to
Skype
go.
you in. Maybe I could Skype you in or something.
Yeah,
Or-
but still though, I know that some things are happening that will allow me to go over there. There's so many things that I want to do, and it's a reality that like in the States there's a lot of opportunities in this topic, a lot more than here in Mexico, which I want to change. Like one of the things I want to do is start making it like a thing here, and that's why I'm doing the podcast, and that's why like I recommend books all the time to my audience that is mainly from Mexico. But yeah, like I have this big challenge right now that is like learning to be patient and understanding that there's a time for everything, and that everything is taken care of. I'm taken care of, and everything will be all right. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been challenging that like I got married, but I'm still like living by myself in Mexico, just waiting on this like paperwork to happen. But yeah, I had to kind of like let go of my tourist visa while I'm in the process of getting my spousal visa, and that
Yeah.
is basically a green card. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at right now.
Well, let me know. And if you when you end up coming to the States next, let me know and I'll come visit you wherever you are.
Yeah, I'll be living in southern Utah at first.
Oh, okay.
That's what Brent is, but that's not like he doesn't want to stay there. He's a helicopter pilot
Oh,
there.
okay.
So he has a job, but he's building up the hours and he wants to go other places. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
and we're into the whole tiny movement,
Oh, okay.
tiny home movement and stuff. So we're in the process of getting our a school bus and convert it into our well,
Wow. That's
yeah, that's kind of the dream, being like uh digital nomads, and he'll be like flying helicopters everywhere, and I'll be doing my thing, and I want to be traveling everywhere. Just like you, like I want to be this like uh full-time speaker, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well we're both on the path. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I'll keep you posted on all that and hopefully you can be involved somehow. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I will love it.